Is the TCU offense trending towards being an elite unit towards the end of the season? We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platform if you listen to podcasts the old-fashioned way in its audio variety. It is Wednesday. We are ramping up for a game against Arizona for the football team at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus as they try to get to 7-4 on the season. TCU basketball was in action last night, so we'll talk about that in segment 3. What I would call an uninspiring win against Alcorn State. I mean, they won comfortably, but the effort didn't give me a lot of hope for, oh man, they really turned a corner and kind of handled their business in that ball game. But they did win convincingly, 71-48. Young O-lineman, Ryan Hughes, he's going to make an appearance, according to Sonny Dykes, maybe more than an appearance this week against Arizona. So we're starting to possibly see some of that trench development that we've been discussing over the past few years with these recruiting classes. But we start today with the TCU offense, and I kind of want to go with a big picture topic. I'll preview Arizona more closely in the next couple of days. I feel like this is a time of year, though, where we really know what TCU is. They've played 10 games. We've seen them over the course of 11 weeks. And so I said a lot in the first quarter of the season, like the only thing to expect with this unit and this team in general is the unexpected. Whatever you think is going to happen, just kind of throw it out the window. But over the past 6 games, really, or 4 games, I guess, since the Houston game and that bye week, they have been a much more consistent football team. And they've cut down the turnovers. They figured some things out with their run game. The defense has been still sort of up and down, but overall has been better throughout the year. My apologies if you're listening on YouTube. I really like this hat. But then I always forget that when I wear it, it messes with the green screen. It clashes with the virtual background. So sorry, I'll try to make a note and I won't do that anymore. But if you're just listening to the audio version, don't worry about it. I'm wearing a Big Sky Montana hat and there's a white background here. This team, though, they've kind of found their footing. And yeah, part of it is the schedule's been easier. I've made mention before. I think if you're going to be concerned about what's happening now, long term, the concern is this sort of a throwback to what they did in 2020, the COVID year, where they started the year 1-3, and they were able to win 5 of their last 6 in the back half of the schedule. But if you really zeroed in on who they beat a very bad Texas Tech team that was coached by Matt Wells. They beat a Kansas team that was struggling mightily. I believe Les Miles was still coaching them at that time. They did pull off an upset win against Oklahoma State at home. They beat a Baylor team in year 1 of Dave Aranda's tenure that was not good. And then they beat Louisiana Tech to close out the season. They scheduled that game late. The one game that you were sort of like outside of the Oklahoma State game, the one game that you were like, man, I don't know if this team can win this game would be their trip to Morgantown, and they lost convincingly. So they were better towards the end of the season, but they really didn't fix what their issues were. Defensively, they improved. A lot of that centered around some of the NFL guys they had, like Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, Trayvon Merrick, Garrett Wallow, really like asserting their will in the second half of that year and being a good unit together. And then offensively, they just honestly ran the ball down people's throats. I mean, they were physically imposing, and they went up against a lot of teams that were not as physical as they were. And so they didn't fix what was ailing them, which was an offense that couldn't really throw the ball and didn't necessarily have much of an identity going into the season. And then in 2021, things unraveled on them because the issues that were present weren't really solved. I do think this is a little bit different because on offense, they've cut down turnovers, and then I'll get to this here in a minute. I think they're also just playing better on that side of the ball. Now, the running game improvement, you kind of have to put an asterisk by that because most of it has been behind getting Savion Williams involved, and he will not be on the team next year. He'll be in the NFL. So you really can't count on that being the case in 2025. And there's not anything schematically they did blocking-wise to change up what they were doing. Defensively, while they've been inconsistent, I think they've gotten better, and there's some young players that are emerging and improving as the season has progressed and has gone on. Most notably in my mind, Marcus Deal. And they're not really a young guy, but his brother Devin Deal has also been great. And I think there's a good chance he comes back next year. We'll see what happens in the offseason. So I feel like there's some legitimate improvement. And today I wanted to focus on, is this offense becoming an elite unit? The stats this year, they are 31st in the country in scoring offense, averaging about 33 points a game, 33.2 to be exact. Rushing offense-wise, we know the struggles there, 119th in the country, 110 yards per game. Passing offense-wise, 6th in the country, 329 yards per game. And Josh Hoover's been really good. Jack Besh has been excellent. They've also got Savion Williams and J.P. Richardson involved. Eric McAllister has had his moments. They're losing a lot of those receivers, but you see the vision with the passing game and with what they've done. The biggest improvement and the biggest reason for success in my mind, red zone offense. They're 26th in the country. They are 38 of 42 in scoring opportunities. That means they've been in the red zone 42 times. They've scored 38 of those times. That's really good, but sometimes that can be misleading because you think, well, are you getting field goals or are you getting touchdowns? Because there's a big difference there. Well, they're 31 of 42 on touchdowns. So they've scored 31 touchdowns in 42 opportunities. Maybe you'd like that to be a little higher, but honestly, over the course of a season, that's pretty good. And besides some red zone turnovers that sunk them a few times, they've come away with points when they've got inside the 20-yard line, which they struggled to do last year. And it's honestly remarkable that they've been able to do that, given how poor they've been in running the ball at times. Because teams know what they're going to do. They're spreading people out. They're trying to create one-on-one matchups and get the ball to those wide receivers. But Kendall Briles and Josh Hoover and those wideouts have executed it well. And they've been able to find space and beat defenders to the punch in the end zone and make plays. If you had a run game, I think those numbers would be higher. But you really can't complain at all about 38 to 42 on scoring opportunities when we're talking about getting in the red zone. That's good for 26th in the nation. And I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, man, this offense really seems to have hit its stride second half of the Tech game on through. They've had 22 drives since the second half of the Tech game, the Baylor game, and the Oklahoma State game. They are 15 of 22 in scoring points, and 12 of those have been touchdowns. They've only punted the ball 4 times. They had that great comeback against Texas Tech where, I mean, they pretty much had to score every time they touched the ball, and they did, except their last drive where they did get one first down before punting. Against Baylor, started out a little shaky, but second half just had one drive where they didn't put points on the board. And I think if Sonny Dykes had it back, he would go for it on 4th and 2 from around midfield. And then against Oklahoma State, almost a perfect night. 2 of those drives at the end of the game were sort of like, hey, this one's in hand. We don't really need to do anything. So if you take that out of the equation, there's really been in meaningful moments in the last 2.5 games. There's only been 5 drives this offense has had where they haven't been able to put points on the board. And the exciting thing about that is next season you're talking about a team that's returning their quarterback, is losing a ton of production at wide receiver, but running back we'll see is kind of TBD. O-line, there's a good chance you return at least 3 of your 5 starters, possibly 4. And TCU's going to have to decide in the offseason. Sonny said yesterday in his press conference, he was like, we're going to be aggressive in going after a wide receiver. And the pitch is going to be pretty simple. Wideouts thrive in this offense. We've sent guys to the NFL. good chance with Savion. You're talking about a dude who's a day 2 pick, and you can sell that to potential portal targets. They've had a ton of success with portal wide receivers in general. I mean, the guys that I mentioned, Jack Best, J.P. Richardson, Eric McAllister. And there's dudes in the wings that show some promise. Jordan Bailey. I don't really know what's going on with JoJo Earl. I'm not sure if he's been banged up this year, and that's been the issue. But it's another season where he just hasn't really been on the field as much as you would like. And when he has been, the production hasn't been there. And then they got some young guys like Braylon James and Kyle Baker and potentially Terry as well. Terry Shelton, the wide receiver that just committed. But we'll see what he does in his true freshman year. Bottom line is they got weapons at that spot, and they have the ability to go get someone. I do think they need to go get a veteran tackle in the portal. But there are some young guys that they seem excited about. One of them I'll talk about here in segment 2, Ryan Hughes, who got some playing time against Oklahoma State. Also, Ben Taylor Whitfield, who's been on the field a lot in his first 2 years on campus. And I think this interior O-line is going to be salty with Brockermeyer and Colton Deary returning. And then you have Cade Bennett, who also could and should slide back in the lineup. And that was sort of the prize jewel of this portal class at the O-line spot. Just unfortunately, it didn't work out this season because of the injury, but no way around that. Everyone would love for your team to just be elite everywhere, right? That's the goal. And that's how you should try to build a roster. You should attempt to be great at every spot. I think the reality is there are a lot of teams around the country that if you can't be outstanding on offense and defense, you have to have a clear identity. And that's, to me, been the thing that's missing the most from this TCU team the past couple of years. I don't really know what they hang their hat on. I would say this year it's become the passing offense. I don't know if that was intentional or if it's just kind of the nature of the personnel they have. And you discovered really from week 1 on out, we can throw the ball. We got wideouts who can win one-on-one matchups. We have a quarterback who can sling it. We have an offense coordinator who schemes up well in the short and intermediate passing game and is able to get the ball out quick. And the O-line, to their credit, has done a really good job giving Josh Hoover a clean pocket and an ability to go make plays. So I think that's what it's become. I don't know if that was what they intended it to be before the season. Next year, if you want to build around that, you can. And it would be awesome if your defense was holding people to 14 points a game. I don't know how realistic that is. But if you have an elite offense that can put up the type of numbers that they've put up in the last 2.5 games, and yeah, I realize part of that you're playing some bad defenses. I get that. I'm not naive. But I do think they become more efficient all year long, but especially here in the last 3 weeks. And the biggest thing, as we've talked about, is they've cut out the turnovers. If you're not giving the ball away and you have playmakers, you got a good shot to go score. And TCU has seemed to figure that out as the years progress. When we come back, we'll discuss more about the O-line and maybe getting some younger guys involved throughout the rest of the season. Locked on Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. We have a couple new sponsors that we're super excited about. One is Skylight Frames. The holidays are here. Are you missing someone this holiday season and you want them to be part of your festivities from afar? Do your loved ones live far away, but you wish they could be close to you? We've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frames is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. It's easy to invite friends and family to easily share their own photos via the free Skylight mobile app, and you can add new photos from anywhere. The touchscreen is a game changer. Swipe through photos, tap to see new photos. It looks beautiful in your home. They're displayed in HD resolution, and you can choose from 5 different frame styles. set it up in portrait or landscape mode. As of now, a special limited time offer for our listeners. Get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase right now at skylightframes.com/college. Also want to tell you about Mint Mobile. I love a great deal as much as the next guy. I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. You want it to be easy too. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, you might be skeptical. Turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process is the time I'll spend on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. MintMobile.com/LockedOnCollege. That's where you need to go right now to see that all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. Bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer in your 3-month mobile plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnCollege. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnCollege. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower than 40 GB on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions do apply. See Mint Mobile for details. So one of the things Sonny mentioned in his press conference on Tuesday was coming off the bye week, Ryan Hughes is going to play some at tackle. They're going to get him some exposure. And he played a few snaps against Oklahoma State, did well. Sonny said he graded out well, that he performed, admirably. I've seen some fans getting excited about this. We're at the point in the year now where hopefully this becomes more common. We're sort of seeing it right now with Jordan Bailey, even though that might just be him being healthy for the first time this year. And maybe he was always in their plans. It's just now they can make him more involved given the fact that he's available. But you've got bowl eligibility wrapped up. You want to win 8 games. You want to win every game you play. But there is an opportunity now coinciding with the fact that you can play someone in these last couple games of the season, and if you haven't played them yet, you don't affect their redshirt status. So you can get them some reps. Ryan Hughes is a freshman lineman, and any game experience you can get him, I think it's a plus. Now, I don't feel like you can do it at the expense of winning a ball game, even though I understand that it doesn't mean a ton other than sort of where you land in the Big 12 standings. I do think it's important for this team to win their last couple of games, keep this momentum going, and just see success. Because this core group in particular, you still have some guys that are starters that were on that team that went 12-0 and made the fantastic run. But there's a lot of contributors that here at TCU haven't seen sustained success over a period of time. And if you're trying to get guys to buy in for 2025, which feels like a pretty pivotal year for this coaching staff and also just for the program and the direction they're moving in the future, then I think you got to go all out and win these ball games and just keep that train rolling through the bowl game and beyond. But give some of these young players opportunities. Jonathan Bax is a guy that I would like to see on the field more, rushing the passer, getting some chances to get home and make plays. Some of these young wide receivers, I wouldn't mind seeing them out there. You're not going to sit Jack Besh and Savion Williams for long periods of time, but get those rotations in and out, allow them to go make some plays. And in a perfect world, if you can get a big lead against Arizona, then you have a great opportunity to give these guys some reps in the fourth quarter. But Arizona, even though their record is underwhelming, they've been competitive in just about every game except the UCF ball game. So I think they'll be ready to play. They still technically have bowl eligibility on the line if they can win the last 2 ball games. Should be beautiful weather. 2 p.m. start. Expect a good atmosphere. And hopefully TCU's got their head on straight and they're ready to rock and roll. And we'll see, this team play at a high level. But exciting to see at least, hey, some of these young guys on the O-line have worked their way up the depth chart enough that late in the year, the coaching staff is like, hey, let's just throw them out there, see what they got, put them in the fire. And, I mean, that's the only way to get better. I'm not totally sure. I guess I should have looked before I said anything. If Haas is going to play, I don't know if he's played in 3 games or 4 games. On the top of my head, I feel like it's been 3, but maybe he snuck in 4, and he's done. Nate Palmer hasn't really gotten many snaps. Maybe give him some run. I think Jeremy Payne, Cam Cook, this is the perfect time to split those carries up and allow them to, state their case for why they should be the lead back in 2025. But we'll see what they do. At least we know that they're shuffling some things around on the offensive line. And, I mean, hey, you can use these last 2 games as an audition of, do we feel like we have the people in-house to make this happen next year at tackle? And you can do that in practice too, but it's different when it's a ball game. It's different when it's live and you're going up against an opponent and they're trying to take your lunch. Like that's a different environment than just practicing against, the scout team. Even if it's good on good, which they're probably not doing a ton of that right now anyway, because of where they are in the year, it's tough to fully get an understanding of what they can do until you give them the opportunity in a live and real environment. So he'll be playing and maybe more young guys throughout the rest of the season. We'll take one more break, come back, talk some basketball next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. FanDuel, it's where the game starts. If you want to get involved, you can go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app. One $5 bet, you win that bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel's been with us for a long time. They're always giving away deals like this, having promotions like this, trying to allow people to get into the sports betting world. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. NFL games, this football game, TCU 11-point favorites for Saturday's contest. Do they cover? You can get in on all that and more at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. FanDuel, it's where the game starts. TCU men's basketball. They are 4-1 after a 71-48 win over Alcorn State. I don't have a lot to say about this game. I don't have like a clear take. My general thought watching this was, man, this is pretty underwhelming. I mean, they took care of their business. They won. Ernest Uday was out again. He's still dealing with back injury. They get some time off. The next time they'll play will be Thanksgiving. So they've got 9 days here. They'll have some travel in between now and then, but you know what I mean. They got a little time to rest and recover. So if this is not a serious injury, then I would imagine Ernest will be back for this tournament coming up in California where they play Santa Clara, and then they get the winner or loser of Colorado State, Washington, depending on how things break in the tournament. So a little 2-game trip. Then they'll come back for a home game against Xavier on December 5th. So schedule ramping up here. Got some practice dates in between as you got 3 games in like 15 days. So you have some time to hit the hardwood and get some players healed up. But Trezarian White led the team with 14 points. They did not shoot the ball very well. 34% from 3, 45% overall, 52% from the line. Micah Robinson only played 16 minutes. He had 3 points, pretty quiet night. Frankie Collins, 5 points, didn't shoot a ton, did have 4 assists, so was distributing. David Punch, young center, had 10 points. And I've been impressed with his just physical ability. I think there's a lot of room to figure things out and grow there, which is good to see. But I expected more coming off the loss to Michigan. And listen, they won the game. I have a pretty standard rule here. We don't complain about wins here on Locked On Horned Frogs. But Alcorn State's bad. They're real bad. So they won comfortably, bottom line, play good defense, and you move on and get a little time off before you take on your next opponent. You can always chime in on the show in the YouTube comments or tweet at me, @SimcockSteven. Richard Berry says this team needs to win out this year. I feel like they can gain momentum in recruiting and overall status. They have to distance themselves from last season as far as they can. If Besh can outlast the larger names, He can definitely put himself in the NFL next season. I think winning out's important too. As I said in the last segment, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to move the needle a lot in the national perception. Now, if you win a big bowl game, I think that makes a difference. Even though bowl games are not what they used to be, I still think that's important. But if you finish 9-4, that's a solid record. And the schedule's a schedule. You play the teams you play. I do feel like it shows some proof of concept, though, moving forward, and gives them some things to build on this upcoming season. Anthony Howard says this team and the 2014 team are similar. It might be helpful to review how that team was able to have a successful running game. I don't agree with that. In a vacuum, I definitely don't. I think 2014 had a much better defense. I think even though the skill players here are good, the skill players are much better, running backs are much better, and the O-line was a lot better. So I would say that's how they ran the ball. They had no line that could maul people, a couple NFL guys on that O-line, and Aaron Green was explosive and was a playmaker and really came into his own that year. B.J. Catalon was available for a lot of that season, and he was the same way. So I don't think those two teams are very similar. I wish they were, but I feel like if this team was similar to the 2014 team, they'd have a much better record at the end of the year. We'll have more coverage of the Arizona game and everything else going on in TCU Athletics on Thursday and Friday. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast.